stood out to you in this report?
Well, for us as doctors, the consequences for the health of all Australians is the issue that really stands out. I think there are two aspects in terms of health that drew my attention. The first is the consequences of the extreme weather events such as very hot days, heat waves, floods and storms. But also the implications in terms of the distribution and frequency of some of the more tropical diseases as they start to increase their frequency and prevalence in the more southern states.
And is climate change something that the health profession is concerned about?
Absolutely. The AMA has a policy on climate change and health that acknowledges the implications for the health of all Australians and urges the government not only to act in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and acting on climate change itself, but also to plan and have strategies for the consequences of climate change, particularly when it comes to our health services and systems.
And how will the health profession respond to accelerating climate change over time?
Well, the health profession will adapt. I mean, we always stand by for people in need, so when we see more frequent extreme weather events, obviously doctors are always going to be among those who respond to people that find themselves in difficult situations and obviously patch people back together. But I think what we need to do is also involve ourselves in some of the policy making decisions to acknowledge some of the more insidious changes that happen with climate change, such as the changes in the frequency and distribution of different diseases that we haven't really seen in the past. So it's about educating not only the population at large but also members of the medical profession.
And what do you think that increasing extreme weather will mean for health?
So there are going to be more extreme weather events, which is linked to climate change. We're going to see more frequent calls not only on doctors themselves to provide care, but an increased strain on the resources of our health system. So we know that public hospitals and emergency departments in particular sometimes struggle to cope with significant events, but we're going to need to make sure that we have good plans in place, local disaster management plans, but also strategies for communicating between weather forecasters, hospitals, major medical centres and our emergency services, so that when those events do occur, we're ready to act.
And what will it mean for Australians' health if we do not take adequate action on climate change?
Well, I think all Australians need to be concerned about the implications for their health. We often think about climate change affecting other things apart from our health, but perhaps one of the major consequences of climate change is the impact on health. It's a much more personal but even a much more immediate effect that we're seeing even now. So I think people need to act together to combat climate change and to make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that we keep within that 2 degrees Celsius range, and we limit the impacts that climate change is going to have on our health in the future.